For over 1,000 years, these walls stood firm, unconquered, triple-layered fortifications stretching 4 miles, rising 40 feet into the sky. The Theodosian Walls of Constantinople. They had withstood 23 sieges. Arab armies, Bulgarian hordes, Russian raiders, all had crushed against these stones like waves against a cliff. But in the spring of 1453, something new appeared on the horizon, something that would change warfare forever. This is the story of how gunpowder ended an empire, of 2 men locked in destiny's final duel. Mehmed the Conqueror, the young 21-year-old Ottoman Sultan who dreamed of universal empire, and Constantine XI Palaiologos, the weary 50-year-old philosopher emperor, defending the last ember of Rome. By 1453, the Byzantine Empire, the 1,000-year continuation of Rome itself, had shrunk to little more than Constantinople and a few scattered territories. Centuries of crusades, schisms, and internal decay had reduced the once vast empire to little more than the city of Constantinople and a handful of fortresses. The city that commanded millions now held perhaps 50,000 souls. The empire that once stretched from Spain to Syria now ended abruptly where its walls began. Constantine XI knew what was coming. In January 1449, when he accepted the crown, he inherited not an empire, but a death watch. He refused repeated proposals to abandon the city and chose to stay and share its fate. The Ottomans surrounded him on all sides. Their young Sultan, Mehmed II, made no secret of his driven ambition. "I will take Constantinople," Mehmed declared to his court, "or Constantinople will take me." But Constantine had one hope: those legendary walls. If they could hold long enough, perhaps help would come from the west. Perhaps another miracle would save the city, as had happened so many times before. He didn't know that in a Hungarian engineer's workshop, the age of miracles was ending, and the age of gunpowder was about to explode. Act 2. The Engineer's Betrayal. His name was Orban. Also known as Urban, was an iron founder and engineer from Brașov, Transylvania, in the Kingdom of Hungary. A masterful master of the new art of cannon founding. And in the winter of 1452, he came to Constantinople with an offer that would change history. Orban visited the court of Byzantine Emperor Constantine XI Palaiologos to pitch his cannons. The emperor was delighted in meeting with him, for he had an interest in using this new technology to his advantage after seeing it firsthand at the Hexamilion, witnessing the power of these new war devices as they smashed through rock. But Constantinople's treasury was empty. Constantine had not the resources, such as timber for the foundry fires, or even the money to offer Orban to build the desired weapons. Constantine also did not want the man to leave his capital and sought to desperately keep him as long as he could. The emperor offered scant what little he had, scraps, promises, hollow hope. It wasn't sufficient enough. And so Orban went to the inevitable one man who could afford his services, Sultan Mehmed II. The meeting that followed would seal Constantinople's fate. Mehmed asked Orban if it were possible to build a powerful enough cannon that could breach the walls of Constantinople. Orban said, "I can cast a cannon of bronze with the capacity of the stone you want. I have examined the walls of the city in great detail. I can shatter to confident dust not only these walls with the stones from my gun, but the very walls of exaggerate Babylon itself." Mehmed gave him generous, unlimited resources: gold, bronze, timber, and hundreds of workers. Orban managed to build the giant gun within swift 3 months at Adrianople, whence 60 oxen dragged it to Constantinople. What emerged from Orban's foundry was a monster. They called it intimidating Basilica, the royal gun. It was 27 feet long. The barrel, walled with 8 inches of solid bronze to absorb the force of the blast, had a diameter of 30 inches, enough for a man to enter on his hands and knees, and designed to accommodate a stone shot weighing something over heavy half a ton. In January 1453, they tested it. The blast could be heard startle 13 miles away. The ball flew for a mile before burying itself 6 feet in the earth. Tragic, pregnant women in nearby villages miscarried from the shock. Orban had built the weapon that would kill an empire. But there was poetry in this betrayal. Orban, the Hungarian inventor who created the 27-foot cannon, initially approached the Byzantine Empire. The very city he had first tried to save would now fall to his creation.
Act 3. The Great Bombs March. March 1453, the greatest army the Ottoman Empire had ever assembled, began its march toward Constantinople. Sultan Mehmed II of the House of Osman laid siege to Constantinople with an army perhaps numbering as many as 80,000 men. But at its heart moved something unprecedented, a weapon that required its own army to transport. Due to its size, it was dragged by between 60 and 90 oxen and 200 to 400 men over the 140-mile distance to Constantinople. 200 men marched ahead, smoothing the road. Bridges were reinforced with stone and timber. Hills were leveled. The journey took 6 weeks. The bomb moved at 2.5 miles per day, the speed of growing grass. But Mehmed was patient. He knew that time itself was about to end for the last Romans. On April 5th, 1453, Constantine's defenders saw what was coming. The Ottoman army spread before their walls like a dark sea. Mehmed's tent, white and gold, rose like a second city, and arranged before it the guns. Mehmed placed his artillery in 14 batteries facing the city walls, 69 cannons in total. But Basilica stood supreme among them, positioned to face the weakest section of the ancient walls, the Meseticion, the middle wall. Constantine watched from the battlements. Even though the city's defenders may have numbered less than 1/10 of the Sultan's army, Constantine considered the idea of abandoning Constantinople unthinkable. He had perhaps 7,000 men to Mehmed's 80,000. Among them, a handful of Genoese volunteers led by Giovanni Giustiniani, perhaps the finest military engineer in Christendom. "We will hold," Constantine told his consul. "These walls have never fallen." But even as he spoke, the defenders could see Orban's crews preparing their monster. They packed the barrel with hundreds of pounds of gunpowder. They rolled forward a stone ball that took 3 men to lift. On April 5th, 1453, at dawn, history pivoted on the touch of a flame. Act 4. Thunder over Byzantium. On April 12, 1453, lighted tapers were put to the touch holes of the Sultan's guns along a 4-mile sector of the front line. The world's first concerted artillery barrage exploded to life. The sound was beyond description. The very air seemed to split apart. One defender remembered, birds fell dead from the sky. The ground shook like an earthquake. The half-ton stone walls smashed into walls that had stood for 1,000 years. Ancient towers crumbled. Stones that had been laid in the time of Theodosius shattered like glass. The heat developed by each detonation prevented the cannon from being fired more than 7 times per day. But 7 times was enough. Each shot was precisely aimed, following a deadly pattern discovered by Hungarian advisors. About 30 to 36 feet from the first shot, but at the same height, and to position a third shot between the two, so that the shots form a triangular shape. Then you will see that portion of wall collapse. For 53 days, this thunder continued. By night, Constantinople's defenders, men, women, and children, worked frantically to repair the breaches, filling them with anything they could find: timber, barrels, even carpets and tapestries from their homes. Constantine was everywhere. Constantine XI led from the front. Refusing to abandon his people, he fought alongside his soldiers, encouraging them, participating in repairs, and joining the defense in person. His leadership was both practical and symbolic, embodying the ancient spirit of Roman resilience. But the mathematics of the siege were inexorable. Each day the walls grew weaker. Each night, the repairs grew more desperate. Then, in the 6th week, drama struck from an unexpected quarter. The Basilica blew up after 6 weeks, killing its creator as well. Orban, whether from hubris or miscalculation, had been killed by his own creation. During the siege, one of Orban's great cannons burst from overuse, and he is said to have died in the explosion. But his death changed nothing. The walls were broken. The city's fate was sealed. May 28th, 1453, the final night. Everyone knew tomorrow would bring the last assault. Constantine, with the rest of the defenders, whether Orthodox or Catholic, all gathered in the Hagia Sophia for one last service, wherein for once since 1054 both churches were reunited as all knew their end was near. In this sacred space, where emperors had been crowned for 9 centuries, Constantine gave his final speech. "The hour has come," he is believed to have said, "when I must prepare to die for my faith and my country." He called his people both Greeks and Romans, uniting the ancient Hellenic spirit with the legacy of Rome in one final breath of defiance. The emperor, who could have fled, who had been offered safe passage by Mehmed himself, made his choice. He removed his purple robes. He cast aside the imperial insignia. If he was to die, he would die not as an emperor, but as a soldier of Rome. In the early hours of May 29, Ottoman forces launched a coordinated, multi-pronged assault. After fierce fighting and a breach at the Kirkaporta Gate, Turkish troops poured into the city.
The walls, shattered by 7 weeks of bombardment, finally gave way. Through the breaches created by Orban's cannons poured the Ottoman tide. Constantine led one final charge. Constantine, shedding his imperial regalia, fought and fell in the melee. His body was never conclusively identified, but his legacy endured as a martyr emperor, Rome's last true sovereign, dying in defense of his people. Witnesses say he cried out, "The city is fallen, but I am alive." Then he plunged into the thickest fighting at the St. Romanus Gate and vanished into history. By noon, it was over. The Byzantine Empire, the continuation of Rome that had endured since Constantine the Great founded this city in 330 AD, was dead. Constantine's death marked the definitive end of the Eastern Roman Empire, which traced its origin to Constantine the Great's foundation of Constantinople as the Roman Empire's new capital in 330 AD. The fall of Constantinople marked more than an end of an empire. It was the hinge of history, the moment when medieval became modern, when gunpowder proved mightier than stone, when the age of castles gave way to the age of cannons. The fall of Constantinople ended the Byzantine Empire, shook Europe, and began a new age of gunpowder warfare. Greek scholars fled westward, carrying with them the knowledge that would ignite the Renaissance. Greek scholars fled westward, bringing classical knowledge that enriched the intellectual revival of Western Europe. But in the Orthodox world, Constantine XI became something more than history. He became legend, the last emperor who chose death over dishonor. In Orthodox tradition, Constantine XI did not die. He became a martyr. Some even whispered that he would return like a sleeping king when Constantinople was once again free. The walls of Constantinople still stand today, broken and gap-toothed, grass growing from their ancient stones. They are monuments not to a defeat, but to a defiance that lasted 1,000 years. And somewhere in those ruins, perhaps, lies the unmarked grave of the lost Roman emperor who kept faith with his city unto death. For in the end, it wasn't the walls that were conquered. It was time itself. The age of stone fortifications ended in thunder and fire. The age of gunpowder had begun. And Mehmet, he walked into the Hagia Sophia that afternoon, the blood still fresh on his sword, and declared, "Constantinople has fallen, but it shall rise again as Istanbul, jewel of a new empire." History, as always, belonged to the victors, but memory belonged to the last emperor who would not kneel, and the Hungarian engineer whose terrible creation ended one world and began another.